Hello, everybody.
Oh, Jamie,
How's it
why did you
going?
do that so soon after the mark? That's going to be a nightmare to edit.
Perfect. I wouldn't have it any other day, my friend. Welcome.
I'm pretty sure I was still saying Mark as you said hello. Oh, well.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's see.
Welcome to Golden Talkies, the most professional podcast on the internet.
What do we do here, Jamie?
We discuss films that came out exactly 50 years ago this week, except when we're late, which happens occasionally.
I reckon this episode's going to be going up 2 days late.
Well, good thing that they get more bang for their buck, because this is a rare Golden Talkies double slammy, as we do 2 films. Last time we did this, it was because we missed an episode. This time, it's because we're just really generous, and 2 pretty important films came out this week.
It's because it's Christmas, guys. We're doing
and also, it's Christmas.
Your present this year from Jamie and I is a doublesode.
Yeah.
Yay! Should we sing some Christmas songs?
Yeah, why not? Let's each sing our favorite Christmas song, starting at the same time, and if it turns out to be exactly the same song, it'll be great.
Okay, you ready?
Okay, ready. Start on 3.
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Come
God
is
rest
falling
ye
all around
gentlemen.
him. Jamie playing with
with
himself. 'Tis the season of
Wow.
Jamie masturbating. Merry Christmas, everyone. Do you remember that one?
I do. It was a very
Jump
cruel
away.
song that Duncan put up while we were in school. Also sung to the tune of no, it's not actually. I was going to say it's not sung to the tune of "Wonderful Christmas Time," so that gives you a pass, I suppose. But,
What's it?
Or is it?
What song is it? Snow was falling.
No, snow is falling.
Which song's that?
Oh no, yeah, it is up to "Wonderful Christmas Time."
I think it is.
bastard.
Yeah. What's wrong with that?
Yeah. It's the worst Christmas song, I would say.
Oh, I quite like it.
I listened, in preparation for this week's release of McCartney 3, I listened to McCartney 1 and McCartney 2.
Right.
And in such a voyage of self-discovery, because I don't know if you know this, but going through McCartney 2 is a real trek. It's during McCartney's using the world's most polite phrase, experimental phrase with the sympathizer. And
Do you mean a
Wonderful Christmas
synthesizer?
Time, very much, yeah, synthesizer.
Right. You said
Wonderful Christmas
sympathizer.
Time. Because I sympathise.
Okay.
But yeah, Wonderful Christmas Time. It does show that off in a very upsetting way to one's ear. If you ever listen.
I got my hair cut
Right.
today.
Shall we get a bit of historical context in whilst we're young?
I was just gonna. Well, what we could do, Jamie, is
Yeah.
say this is some historical context for the current time. I got my hair cut today, and that could be the last time I get my hair cut for forever, because we're going into
Yeah.
lockdown, baby.
That's true. Well, I mean, that's true, but on the other hand, what's the difference between tier 3 and 4? Because I never noticed.
Four is like shut down.
Yeah, but like that's
So-
what happened in Glasgow. Nothing really changed.
Really? I thought all the shops closed.
Yeah.
All the shops are going to close, mate, and all the restaurants are going to close.
But they haven't closed.
No, they're closing.
They have-
They're closing on Boxing Day.
Oh, is it Boxing? Oh, did we go to tier 4 starting Boxing Day?
For 3 weeks from Boxing Day, the whole of Scotland's going to tier 4.
Okay, that makes a bit more sense.
So
I was confused. Out to buy shoes
Right.
today, and I bought the shoes, but I was also like, pretty weird that I was able to buy shoes. I thought we were in tier 4, but now I see we weren't.
We're not yet.
Yeah,
because
just,
everyone knows the
important
best thing
for
to do for
everyone
the
to remember.
coronavirus. Yeah, go on.
The important thing to remember, as we and Duncan have discussed, this is also a record of our thoughts and feelings during this historical event. And what I want the future to know is that this was all entirely preventable, had the government been more competent, and I do blame them. Yeah.
I don't really blame them. I think it's a pretty impossible situation for anyone. What I do
we
think,
should've
though,
gone-
is that it was 100% inevitable that something was going to happen at Christmas, and he should have just cancelled it a long time ago.
Yes, that's exactly
That's
what
my
I'm saying.
opinion.
Yeah.
But I think
It's
their
not
response
doing
generally
alright.
has been pretty good, given the situation. but I think that they fucked it a bit in terms of how they have planned ahead.
It's been a perennial pattern of leaving big decisions to last minute, and I mean,
this one, I don't know. This one's based on new evidence. Mm-hmm. It's based on a new strain. If it wasn't for the new strain, they wouldn't be changing anything at Christmas. But my point is not so much that they should have cancelled Christmas because it's not responsible, although arguably it's not responsible. But my point is that it was kind of inevitable that there was going to be some issue. You know, if you just think about that, what a shit show it's been. It was pretty inevitable it was going to be an issue.
Look at what happened with the US and Thanksgiving. That was obviously not good.
Yeah. Well, but the idea is that people are just going to do it anyway, isn't it? So they were trying to.
Do you want to know what incredibly important birthday happened on December 20th, 1970? Yeah. I'm talking the birthday of a generation, baby. Thanked personally by Bong Joon-ho at last year's Academy Awards. Is of course our favourite boy, Todd Phillips, the greatest director of all time, director of The Hangover and Joker.
Was he? Did Bong Joon-ho praise him?
Very briefly. Like he said, also it was like also you may remember he gave like a long speech to Martin Scorsese and then a slightly shorter one to Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah, I remember.
And then he sort of very quickly mentioned Todd Phillips and Sam Mendes as like, you guys are also cool.
Interesting. But
Polish uprising failed.
Why are you talking about the 20th of December 1970?
Because that's the last 50 years ago date, isn't it? Yeah. But I'm just going through what happened 50 years ago this week that we should have done.
It's supposed to be the day. It's supposed to be the day of the films, Jamie.
Well, yeah, but you know, for context, we like to go into what was going on in the week of release so that people can get a feeling for the time.
I think you do, Jamie.
For example,
I like to stick it strictly to the day.
Wow. Some shipyard workers in Poland went on strike, and then some soldiers fired on them, killing dozens. That's probably the uprising that it said failed. Both the US and USSR were performing nuclear tests this week.
Oh, Jamie, that was one of my things. See, you've ruined the whole thing. I had a whole plan for a historical context. I'm going to go in the huff now for the rest of the podcast. You've ruined my evening.
That's fair. I don't regret anything. Okay, one more and then we're done. Nothing of much interest otherwise happened. So what have you got for us?
So,
my boy.
The two films we're watching this week are Love Story and El Topo, which came out on the 16th and 18th of December, respectively. On the 16th of December 1970, there was the first successful landing on Venus, and that was by the USSR. And there was an article in Time magazine about Black Santas and how even though a lot of places had both Black Santas and White Santas available, most people went to the White Santas, even black families. And it's because of the inbuilt cultural representation of Santa. And that made me think, as I thought about the other day, about the book Paper Towns, which has a character in it whose family collects Black Santas. And I couldn't remember where I remembered it from, and I looked it up when I saw this fact, and yep, there you go.
Paper Towns. Interesting.
And then
I've never read Paper Towns. Is that a John Green one?
Yeah. It's quite good.
Yeah.
It's a young adult book. I read it a few years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I'm a little old now.
I mean, you could still read it. Why not, you know?
I suppose.
Fuck the man. And my other point, which you've already said, is that both of the dates that we're looking at, the US did a nuclear test in Nevada. So that just shows you that there were bombs and stuff getting ready.
It's Cold War. Okay, we good to go? Which film shall we do first? We haven't discussed this because, again, we are very professional. I think we should do Love Story first. I think it'll be a little easier to talk.
Because it came out first.
Okay, so that works very neatly. Right, Love Story. So looking at reviews and stuff, there was a lot of hype around this film at the time. It was based on a book that had come out, I think, very recently and was like the big hit, particularly among, the lady folk.
Yep.
It is. So, a lot of hype. The scriptwriter also worked on this film. So, did the screenplay. Sorry, the scriptwriter also wrote the book, is what I should say.
The author wrote the screenplay.
Yeah, stuff like that. Love Story is about a man whose wife dies, very briefly. Slightly less briefly, it is um, about a young Harvard lad whose name I've already forgotten. Bartlett
Oliver.
or something. Barnett?
Oliver Barrett.
Barrett, that's it. And he comes from old money. But so he's got to Harvard, mostly because, his father donated the building, as I understand is the system.
Yep.
And then he meets a young girl in the library called Jenny Calinetti, I think.
Yep, something like that.
And they have a flirty banter where she sort of belittles him, and he tries to match to her, but he can't really. And they fall in love, and tensions arise between the young man and his father, who doesn't approve of his new gal. But they steadily fall in love and get married. And in response, the father cuts off the young man from his fortune, and he's forced to make his own way in the world, which he does. And they start to build they start to build a good life for themselves in New York. But tragedy strikes, and she falls ill, and then she dies. And the father feels bad and offers to help, but it's too late. And then Oliver mopes, and that is the summary of my film.
That was good.
My brief synopsis. Thank you. I'm trying to get better at doing these quickly, because I feel it's more interesting to talk about things in detail than in breath.
Jamie, you actually didn't need to do that, because when I googled the film, a fantastic summary came up. Would you like to hear it?
Why not?
Oliver and Jennifer are best friends, semicolon. Love blossoms between them, and they get married. Oliver's father doesn't accept of their love, but with every obstacle they face, their love grows more stronger. I don't think the phrase more stronger is correct grammar, but correct me if I'm wrong.
No. I'm not sure that best friends really belongs in the description.
I agree. I believe this was Wikipedia. It's whatever came up when I looked up on Google, and I thought that was a rather humorous description of the film. It kind of sounds like a sort of early senior school, high school kind of piece of writing about
book report sort of thing.
Yeah, book report. I'm not sure where that came from, but there you go.
No. Okay. So, shall we discuss more in depth, I suppose? What do we think of fucking Oliver? Because I have problems with him, but I want to hear you speak first. Because I'm going to go ahead and think you can guess what my issues with him are.
What do I think about Oliver?
Yeah, as a lead. It feels a natural place to start, unless you...
Well, do you know... I want to say something else first, personally. Sure. So the person that directed this, can you guess, or do you know what other film he made that we've watched?
I do not know. I will guess. I'm guessing he must be known for rom-coms. If he was asked... this isn't a rom-com, it's a rom-drama, I guess. If he was asked to direct this, I'm assuming he would have to have done something similar. And thinking back... Maybe I Never Sang for My Father, although that's quite similar release time.
That's close. Not really close.
Close, though. Interesting. It wouldn't be that. 5 Easy Pieces, maybe?
Nope.
That's too high profile. I don't know.
The Out-of-Towners.
Oh, that does make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I just realised that actually I was confusing my films when I noticed this, but my point still stands. No, but so the guy's name's Arthur Hiller, and I think both films brought a lot of anxiety in me.
Do you have anxiety producing?
Not necessarily anxiety, but it was just kind of... Well, maybe, I don't know. I realised my point is invalid because I got the films confused. I thought it was I Never Sang for My Father. I got the films confused. But I realised my point is still there's vaguely similar. Okay, you're right. Let's go back to Oliver, and then we can jump back on that point later.
Okay, so I'll say my opinions on Oliver. I think he's a big old weenie, but not enough of a weenie to be likable. I don't really. I feel for me a lot of the life and death of romance like lives and dies in the chemistry between the two characters. And whilst I like Jenny a lot, I don't really like Oliver's banter with her. I think it lacks a certain
It
spark.
kind of seems like they hate each other.
Well, like a lot of like my favorite like fictional couples like belittle each other a lot, but like in a friendly way because they're both sort of up to it. Whereas what happens with Oliver and Jenny is that like Jenny's quite clever and Oliver's not, at least in dialogue. So it's mostly just Jenny just making fun of him, and then he whines a bit about it, and that's their relationship.
Yeah.
Which I don't find particularly enjoyable myself. He occasionally gets a good swipe in, but not often. It's not fun to hear them talk for its own sake, which I think is certainly what the best romances offer. But also, I would say just his entire arc is about him. Well, not his entire arc, but a lot of his arc is about him giving up his privilege as a rich boy. But it really annoys me because he never really does. Like,
yeah,
even when his father cuts him off, he still gets into Harvard Law School and then is earmarked for success immediately. Like, he doesn't really work for anything he gets, regardless. Like, he does well in school, but like he's already at Harvard. So yeah, it really irritates me. He also has the fucking balls to just ask for a scholarship, which I think is fucking ridiculous. Although I realize things work different in the 70s. But yeah, I don't know. Like, just in terms of the aspect of the film, which is like, isn't it a shame that Oliver has been cut off? And like, obviously there's an emotional impact, but I don't like the film's idea that he had to work for anything when he very clearly didn't really.
I mean, they have to work quite a lot after he graduates. But
after he graduates, he almost immediately gets hooked up with a high-class law firm, and then he's just rich again. I suppose that's the thing. It's not like
I think it takes a while for that to happen.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying it's not like his father cut him off, and then like he had to accept a like working class life with Jenny. It's that his father cut him off, and then he, like, maybe like what's it take? It takes 3 years to get through law school. So let's say 4 years later is immediately back to being rich again.
I mean, I don't think.
It's barely sacrifice.
Yeah, I don't think 4 years is immediate exactly.
No, but like just
Jenny.
Not...
Spoiler alert: Jenny dies. So you know that 4 years.
Jenny
was the time that he spent with her. Just think about the shortness of life.
Purely from the perspective of, isn't it a shame that his father cut him off? It just doesn't seem to have held him back that much. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
And therefore, I struggle to invest too much in his struggle as a character. I think the emotional aspect of Oliver's relationship with his father is more interesting. It's very sterile. He addresses his father as Sir. I think the father's always like son.
Yeah. So my thing with the director was I was getting the Out of Towners confused with I Never Sang for My Father. And I was going to say they're incredibly similar films with the same theme. I wonder if the director had this with his father. But now I realised that I was talking about different films. So
psychoanalysis is unneeded.
Exactly. But yeah, I do think it's an interesting thing to explore, and I think it's explored pretty well. I think that aspect is explored pretty well. I do think the relationship feels a bit unnatural. Like, I would have to.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think there's interesting ideas in this film, but they always exist at the edge of the relationship. I think the other interesting point that this film sort of brings up and then sort of brushes over is how much Oliver and Jenny's attraction to each other is based on their class status. Like, is Jenny's attraction to Oliver in some part based on the fact that he's richer than her? Is Oliver attracted to Jenny in some part because he knows it will piss off his father? And like whether that makes their love any less real. And that's mentioned in a couple of lines of dialogue, and I find that a quite interesting idea. But like it's sort of not brushed past, but it's brought up as an idea and then not really examined in a way that I think could have actually been quite interesting.
Yeah. I would agree. It feels like the film should be about their relationship more than the guy's relationship with his father.
Well, I think one of the weird things is that a lot of the emotional crux of the story is really on Oliver's relationship with his father, and in a way that's actually not super cool. Jenny's death is just sort of used as a tool to advance that arc. It's really about how Jenny's death affects Oliver and his relationship with his father, rather than how it affects Jenny in any way, who's mostly pretty cool with it and not really involved with the story of her own death.
There's a sequel to this film.
That surprises me, although I guess it was very successful.
It's called Oliver's Story, and he meets another woman, and then he reconnects with his father.
Oh, reconnects with his father.
And I think he leaves the woman. I've not, just to clarify, full disclosure, I've not seen the film. I just looked up. It caught my interest, and I wanted to see.
I've got to say, as sequels go, that does sound like a sequel, which is just what one would already assume was going to happen.
True, but I guess well, I don't know. I was going to say it could be worse, but probably not. Yeah. So that's something to think about. That the kind of ambiguous ending of the film is really not. It's kind of undone by the fact it's a sequel.
But yeah, I would say my two major issues with this film, because we just covered them one back to back, is I don't like the way it portrays class. I think it's lacking, and I think that Jenny is sidelined in the story in a way that I don't think is really justifiable. Do you have any major complaints or to introduce to the discussion?
I wouldn't say, not particularly. Jenny's dad's an interesting character, Phil.
Yes, I was going to talk about. So Jenny's dad, in contrast to Oliver's, she's quite close with her dad.
Yeah, but she calls him by his first name rather than dad.
Which was, I know at that time, still considered somewhat scandalous.
Yeah.
But her dad's also, Jenny's a Catholic, but she's more, while she wears a cross around her neck, she's not practicing. She doesn't consider it a major part of her identity, but her dad does. And then in one of what I thought was quite an interesting sign of the times is that Jenny and Oliver refuse to have a religious wedding because they think it's old-fashioned.
Yeah.
Which I found quite interesting because obviously they stuck around in the end, didn't they? And Jenny's father's kind of clearly upset because this is all modern, and he makes it clear that he'd be happy to have them married under any religion at all. But the idea of being no religion, whilst he's still supportive, he's clearly unhappy about it. He's just sort of slowing it.
It's a nice contrast to how the two fathers compare when they kind of don't agree with stuff. Interesting.
Well, yeah, exactly. His approach when he's upset by something is to swallow it for the good of his relationship, whereas perhaps because he's a disgusting businessman, Oliver the Third does not accept when Oliver the Fourth disobeys him. And can't back down. He doesn't seem like a man of compromise. Perhaps you'd agree.
I would absolutely agree. Yep.
Yeah. But one of the interesting things I thought is that whilst this film talks a lot about marriage, traditional marriage going out of the way, once Oliver and Jenny's life starts up properly, they actually settle into traditional gender roles pretty quickly. Like Oliver quickly becomes the breadwinner and Jenny becomes the housewife by the end of his school teaching, which I thought was quite interesting. I suppose it just sort of shows how firstly the future is hard to predict, but also that even if you think you're being progressive, you can still overlook things that might seem obvious.
I suppose the progressive thing was that she had to work for a bit, at the time. Yeah. That was the kind of... Mm-hmm. I mean, I say at the time, it's 1970, not like 1900, but still, it's that's kind of the progressive element, is that she
supports him
for a bit. And then the sort of implication is that, okay, she had to do that, but now she's able to do what she really has to do or wants to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And she, she wants to be a mammy. That's her big desire.
Yeah.
Which is all that. What else am I going to say? Oh, yeah. Fucking Oliver wins $500,000 for an essay prize.
Is that? Did I thought that I'd got that wrong. But yeah,
so I looked it up and it was like, what is 500 big? Because like $500 seems kind of low for an essay prize. But I was like, it can't be 500,000 surely.
I was trying to think, is it like 500, so it's like 50,000, or is it like 510, like five, like I was trying to work out what it could possibly be that they would be realistic.
But I suppose when I'm saying like about Oliver immediately becoming rich again, what I'm talking about is like, even though he worked for that essay prize, obviously he does leave Harvard already a rich man.
So it is 500
good
grand.
stay there.
Or is that confirmed?
Yeah. A big one is a grand apparently. So I don't know what else it could be.
I'm going to look it up.
Sure.
As in, I'm going to look up in the context of the film specifically.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Whilst we're talking about Jenny getting sidelined, another thing that really bothered me, although I think is perhaps reflective of the time, is that the doctor tells Oliver that Jenny's dying before he tells Jenny that she's dying.
Yeah,
which
I find that
seems
really weird.
Really quite bizarre.
Yeah.
So there's a day or so where Oliver is aware that Jenny is going to die, and she doesn't, and he doesn't tell her. Out of the kindness of his heart, although it also seems a bit fucked up. I don't know.
Right, I can't find anything about this. It can't. It surely cannot be. I think it might be $500.
I'm gonna look it up right now again, even though I looked it up before, and you're gonna swallow your words.
No, I believe you that a big one means 1,000, but I think in the film it means.
Well, actually, no, I'm gonna look at
$500.
Now, big
You must
ones, meaning, right? A big one, $1,000. Big one, multiple of $1,000. Yeah, it seems pretty consistent.
Apparently, okay. This is not fully researched. I just googled it, but a prize of $4,000 is awarded for the best paper written by a student in the field of public international law. So, to me, that implies that he probably means $500.
That's it,
right? At the time.
Maybe. I mean, I guess that makes more sense. It just still seems weird. I guess slang changes, doesn't it?
I'm on the Harvard writing prizes thing, right? And they're all. It looks like the highest one's $9,000.
Yeah.
They can't give out $500,000 every year to the best, the best normal student essay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get $500,000. Surely not.
That's what they really do. I was assuming it was a contrivance for the film. Although I guess it doesn't really matter anyway, because he gets a good job immediately.
Yeah, it's true.
It wouldn't be necessary to contrive it for the film, nor is it necessary to my taste.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. The only other thing I have written down is that I apparently thought the film wasn't manipulative enough.
Right.
When I watched this, and to explain that opinion, which I will do now.
Yeah.
I guess I suppose it's supposed to be melodramatic, but I think it doesn't swing for the fences enough. I suppose. I think partially because so much of the plot's energy is taken up about being the father. Whereas I think if it invested more in the main romance, then it would be easier to get the tears going. Although I don't know, maybe audiences can only care about how a person's death will affect the two male characters, and that's just what you got to do.
Maybe I thought it was. I don't know if I cried, but no, I definitely had some feels towards the end.
Okay.
Do you think there's any truth in the implication that she makes that he's just marrying her to annoy his father or to do something different? Well, that's what you were talking about earlier, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think it's obviously Jenny. I think that Jenny's promise of rebellion is part of the reason. I mean, it's part of who she is to Oliver, but I don't necessarily think that makes their attraction any less real.
Yeah.
I mean, all of these things together are a part of who a person is, and if Jenny represents that to him, but he's still obviously aware of her as a person beyond that, because it's still a part of who she is. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. In much the same way that Jenny says that Oliver being rich is part of who he is to her. Yeah. Alright. Well then, I'm struggling to talk about it because it's an interesting question, and one which perhaps could be explored through the medium of film.
Yeah.
I don't know. I shouldn't argue too much about what I want films to be rather than what they are. I suppose meeting the film purely on its own terms, I would say it is a decent enough romance, although it didn't really move me.
Would you,
although that might
if
be what
you,
I call emotional
if you
stuff.
were the American Film Institute, would you put it number 9 on your most romantic list?
No.
It is number 9 on the American Film
yeah.
Institute's most romantic list. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that at all.
There you go.
I don't know. I suppose it's probably really good if you're trying to enjoy it a lot more than I was, I suppose. Or if you're willing to buy into this. I bet you'd like it a lot more if you were older than we are, and like you sort of looked back on your college days with a certain nostalgia.
Right.
For your youthful passions, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I
don't know. I feel like something like Getting Straight would be a lot more.
I don't think the middle-aged adult of the time would like Getting Straight because.
Oh, you mean people at the time, what they would think? I thought you meant
at the
people
time.
now.
That's what
right.
I mean.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Yeah, it's yeah. There's nothing in it. If we think back to Getting Straight, there's nothing in this film about the context of the time. It's sort of a timeless film, or not timeless, but
although I
old-fashioned.
suppose. But now that you mention it, like it is actually quite odd that they don't really mention Vietnam
at all,
for example,
yeah,
something like that. It's just sort of passed over.
I mean, he's a rich white guy, so he's not going to.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the other thing. Well, he's not going to get sent there, but obviously, I think it would be realistic for him to have a strong opinion at the time.
Yeah, well,
perhaps rich boy, he would be strongly in favour.
Maybe they would disagree. Maybe the pair of them would disagree, and
maybe that would be interesting. But yeah, I think the only real contemporary reference is that they talk about how Jenny loves the Beatles. Although even that's not that contemporary a reference in a way.
Yeah.
They wouldn't at the time, obviously, but that would still make sense today.
And talking about loving the Beatles loved our next film. Moving on to JK.
Oh, we're moving on.
No, but they did.
No, we're not moving on. We're sticking. I know John Lennon did.
Yeah.
But I want to hear more of your thoughts on Love Story, Duncan. Is there anything else about it that stuck out to you?
The guy that plays Jenny's dad is the same guy that gets the horse put in his bed in The Godfather.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
The dialogue's really weird.
Yeah.
I think that's just of the time.
Well, there's some good quotes in it, and there's moments where the dialogue brushes up against being quite clever. And,
there is definitely, but for the most part, I feel like their banter doesn't really. As you said earlier, their banter doesn't really hit. Although, looking at what got written down, Oliver accuses her of being able to dish it out but not take it. Do you think that that's true, or do you think that his banter is just not very good?
I think his banter sucks.
Right.
I know. I think Jenny's banter tends to go towards being sort of surface level, but playful, whereas Oliver's is rarer, but often not crueler, but more based on true observation, I suppose, of her character. But I don't know. It's not quite. I like playful banter, and I don't think it's not that. Quite. I think it's just a bit odd. But then, I think Jenny. I like Jenny's contributions.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I think if Oliver was more of a weenie and just completely broke down upon being teased, then that would also be kind of fun. But it's just he stands up just enough for himself for it to not be funny on its own terms, but it's also not funny as a back and forth.
Yep. I see.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Ali McGraw was in Convoy.
Sorry?
The girl that plays Jenny was in Convoy.
Convoy is apparently really good, isn't it? And
it is.
I haven't seen it.
I've seen it.
An overlooked classic.
It's a good film.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right then. Shall we go for a rating?
Oh yeah, I've not really thought about this though.
Cool. I'll tell you mine. I think this film was all right, but I think there are romance is not a sparse genre, and I think there are other ones, and so I think this is for me a strong watch if it's on. Higher quality than other films I've rated above that rating, but because it's fairly generic.
Did you take ages to say that, or is the connection cutting out?
Possibly.
Possibly both.
Yeah.
I think I'm also going to rate it watch if it's on. It's good. It's not amazing. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. But speaking of the Beatles and speaking of amazing,
Yeah. See, we should have done that better, shouldn't we?
We should have, but you know what? We need to get the ratings in there. Maybe we could have done both ratings at the end, I guess. But whatever.
I guess so.
Our next film, El Topo, which translates to The Mole, which is a film by Jodorowsky, I think is how you pronounce his name.
Leandro Jodorowsky, maybe.
Jodorowsky.
That's how I would say.
He's French-Chilean, I think, director, but this is a Mexican film.
Yeah, Chilean French. I assume. Well, I don't know. I was gonna say I assume he's Chilean and has lived in France for a while, but I don't really know. I couldn't really. I was trying to look. My assumption was that he was Chilean and that he got exiled, and then moved to France, as many Chilean filmmakers did. But I couldn't find anything about it. So
he
maybe
seems to have lived a very interesting life.
I'm sure he did.
He talked about how he's never belonged anywhere. I saw an interview. I can't remember. Like it was like two French for Chile, two American for Mexico, two Mexican for America, two Jewish for France.
Oh, was he Jewish?
Apparently.
Oh, his name's pretty Jewish, I guess.
Oh, it is actually. He's still alive, apparently.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
92 or so.
Yeah.
Which good for him. So yeah, this film is El Topo. It is about a cowboy, who. Actually, you know what? I think before discussing the plot, I should probably say this is what would later be termed an acid western. So it's about creating a very weird atmosphere. It's full of very surreal imagery. It's a very spiritual film, although I don't know if that's necessarily part of the genre, but it's certainly part of this film. So it's cloaked in a sort of obscurity, yes, and symbolism. So within this, we find the story of El Topo, who is a cowboy who rides with his son, who is a young naked boy of 7. And he arrives and some local banditos accost him, and he shoots them in blood. And he finds a man called the Colonel who runs the local sort of gang. He's a man who dresses in full military regalia with sort of white powder makeup. And he kills the Colonel and his gang. And then the Colonel's sort of mistress asks to ride with him, and he abandons his naked son with the monks there and rides off with her. Then he very coolly and not problematically sexually assaults her when they're in the desert after a while. And she accepts it because this is the 70s and we're not the most progressive. But she says that in order to win her love, he has to kill 4 gunmasters of the desert, which El Topo does. Every gunmaster has their own sort of theme visually. They all got their separate philosophies after major sort of Eastern spiritualities. I think one accords to each spirituality, although I don't know enough about the source material to have picked up on that when I was watching. And El Topo wins against all of them, but he always cheats. He's not able to win outright. He's not good enough. And in the final battle, he doesn't win at all, really, because his opponent kills himself rather than face him directly, because he delights in denying El Topo the chance of victory. At this point, El Topo's the mistress abandons El Topo because she rides off with another mysterious gunslinger, a female gunslinger with a man's voice. She decides she'd rather be lesbian with her, and abandons El Topo. And then I think El Topo meditates for many years. He's after being shot on the ridge. He awakens many years later in a cave where he's surrounded by people who have various deformities. So people who suffer from dwarfism, people without limbs, and that sort of thing. And they say they've been trapped in a cave for many generations, and he is their god. But he is now awoken, and he and one female with dwarfism make the climb out of the cave. It takes 3 days, but El Topo believes that El Topo undertakes to free them all by digging them a tunnel. So she and him go begging at the local town. Day in, day out, the town is run by cultists who who have a cult of violence and racism. But El Topo continues to perform for their delight, gathering alms, which he spends on clearing out the tunnel. But one day he runs into a monk because he's going to get married to the woman who came with him. But the monk recognizes him. It is his son growing up, and he says he'll kill him. But the woman pleads with him and says that El Topo is doing great things now, even if he was evil in the past, and that he should help them build the tunnel first, which after some persuading he does, and the tunnel is eventually built, but in the outpouring of those who lived beneath the surface is met with a massacre by the folk of the town who shoot them all dead. Everyone dies, including El Topo himself, leaving the woman who became his lover and gave birth to his child and his adult son to ride off into the sunset. Which I suppose is as good a sum up of the plot as I could do.
Yeah, that was really good.
Thank you.
A lot quicker than the film felt.
I really like the film. I'm picking up that maybe you didn't.
I liked the film, but I found it very long. And,
the film, as I said, is more about the imagery on the way.
Yeah.
And philosophy and the philosophy of the characters you meet, which it sort of drinks in the atmosphere, which is why the actual plot isn't very long. But it's more.
Yeah.
I would say if the film is about anything, it is about El Topo's spirit. It's a very spiritual film. It is about El Topo sort of descending into a pit of self-loathing violence, and then through his being reborn in the deformed society, seeking a form of redemption. Although even then he is cut down in his last moment of virtue, I suppose.
This is one of the many films I've watched that I've really hated whilst watching, but upon reflection, after you've done something, you only remember the good bits, and upon reflection, they're actually really good. That's my say on it.
I watched a bit of it yesterday, and I wasn't super into it, and then I got busy, so I had to pause. And then I watched the rest of it this morning whilst I was kind of awake, kind of asleep. And I was much more into it then.
Right.
So I think the only thing to say is that you should watch this film while you're high.
So what you're saying is that, are you encouraging our viewers to watch films in multiple parts?
No, never. I'm just saying that maybe if you're drunk or under the influence of a substance or just really tired, it's good to be in the state between waking and unwaking for this film, I believe.
Yeah.
That hit hard for you. But I think, as you say, now it's been the entire day since I've stopped watching it, and I've just sort of been slowly thinking about it in the back of my mind. It's really started to worm its way in.
Yeah, I would agree.
Really enjoy it. Good thing to think about. I think it's gonna climb in my estimation as the weeks go by. But
let me look up. There's another film I'm thinking of. I'm looking it up right now.
I'll
go
just for
whatever
trivia. So you may remember on the podcast I said I was playing for the game No More Heroes a while back, the Switch release. And whilst I was watching this film, I was like, the first half of this film is basically the same plot as No More Heroes. It's about killing a lot of really skilled people in order to impress a lady, and it's very weird. And I was like, I wonder if El Topo was an inspiration. Maybe I could ask the author on Twitter or something. And then it turns out on the Wikipedia page for El Topo, it specifically says that it was an inspiration, the key inspiration for No More Heroes. So look at me finding connections between things I enjoy.
Woman in the Dunes. Okay.
I haven't seen it.
It's a 1964 Japanese new wave film.
Huh?
And it's really dull. It's silent, if I remember correctly, black and white. Just like some dude in the desert, but it's much like this one. I really didn't like it when I was watching it, but looking back at it, and in my mind I just remember the really nice imagery and the ideas that it had and stuff, and I like that. So yeah, that's, I guess, what you said earlier about you need to be in the right frame of mind to watch this film and be prepared to I mean, obviously it depends what you like, but be prepared maybe not to enjoy it as you sit and watch it, but just make sure you take it in, and then you might think back on it.
Yeah, I think like it's very much. It's not a very high stake. No, that's not true. It's high stakes. It's not very fast paced. It's very slow paced. I think that's probably the best way to say it. But like it is about sort of observing this world that Jodorowsky has created, which is just very trippy, but very.
Yeah.
It's a very spiritual world, as I said. I keep saying that, but it's because it's so true. But it's also a deeply horny one.
That's true. So there's a rape scene, and he initially claimed that it was a real rape. He actually raped the actress, but it turned out that was at least allegedly a publicity stunt. Which is probably not in the best taste. I looked at his
I mean, you know me. I'm usually quite. I believe women. But like I don't think she came forward. But more importantly, like looking at his explanation after the fact, where he was like, "That was just a publicity stunt." Like if you think about it for a second, like you need tons of people at a film shoot. Like people would have seen what had happened and would have stopped him. And it's a long scene, so they would have had to take breaks in between it to redo the lighting and stuff.
Well, I mean, he did say that they went out with just the camera guy and him.
Yeah, but later he was talking about like how you film in the desert. They needed 100 people there. You need people to like rake down the entire thing to make sure there aren't any scorpions or spiders in it.
No, it was No, like, I mean it was pretty.
Water and stuff.
I'm not trying to say it wasn't a publicity stunt. I'm just saying it's an interesting publicity stunt to pull.
Yeah.
Nowadays no one would pull that one.
Yeah, it's an awful publicity stunt to pull, obviously.
But
I do appreciate also that what he was saying about. I mean, like understanding the context of the time, like he was talking about how like at the time it was impossible for a Mexican to be taken seriously in the US market, so he had to do something to grab attention.
And also, he also talks about the way that the avant-garde films are advertised and promoted, and how their rules are or not advertised and promoted, but just how the rules of that kind of world are different. And I think that is true. If you look at those films that are full of animals getting massacred and people getting raped and all this stuff, but it's all done in the name of very specific things, and I feel like that it kind of does fit into that. But I did find that a really interesting thing.
Yeah, from his I don't realize that he was in a position to lie at that point, but I think it sounded reasonable. Like from his position, he was also like, I said at the time, like I shot all those animals. I got them from the zoo, and like the carcasses were already there. I bought them from a butcher. I was like, really, we were being professional. Yeah, like I think it's easy to underestimate how many people are needed to make a proper film. But I don't.
That's true.
His explanation was that A, I didn't do it, but B, like I couldn't have done it because you need a lot of people at a film set, and that to me had a ring of truth to it. But it's not an amateur. It's not a film that was made by two people. I think that's pretty obvious.
No. So did they kill the animals? No.
No, they didn't. They were already dead.
Right. That's cool. Because I looked into this a few weeks ago for one of my courses, and there are a couple of films over the years that have genuinely killed animals on screen, and it's always an interesting thing. Like some of them it's like we bought the animal and did it. Some of them it's like the animal. There was one film, I can't remember what it was called, where there's a horse that dies, and the guy was like, "Well, we bought the horse from a slaughterhouse, and."
So it's morally like neutral.
The horse meat went back to the slaughterhouse to be used for whatever it was going to be used for. So all we did was film the killing of it, and sure, maybe they killed it not in the same way they would have been otherwise killed, but no, I think they did. Basically, it's a scene. I wish I could remember the film, but it's a scene where a horse falls off a banister onto a spike, and in the film it looks like the horse is alive and falls off the banister into a spike. But what he said was that they shot it in the head, so it was essentially dead, and it was just like taking its last steps, and then they pushed it, and then it kind of fell over the barrier as it was dying. So it was, I don't know, I just find it interesting, the idea of what is morally right to do on film and show on film.
I think animals are obviously tricky. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think the general my rule would, as with most things, be like it's fine to kill animals where necessary, but avoid it where you can. But then thinking about it, I'm not sure if any film could ever reach the real barrier for necessary.
Yeah, like is is artistry necessary? I don't know, probably not.
Yeah, although I don't know. I mean, at the same time, it's not. I mean, obviously, I eat like meat at the same time.
Yeah.
So I can't.
Like if a horse is going to get shot in the head anyway, why not?
I don't think I could really complain about that thing where like the horse is like already booked to die. I don't think you can logically do that other than say.
I guess. I mean, I guess the main thing about the debate is whether it's humane or not. The way that it's done on film compared to a slaughterhouse, and I guess that's the thing.
I suppose though, as a debate, it's going to get less and less relevant. It will have gotten less and less relevant as more options have been available in terms of VFX.
Definitely, man.
But yeah. Anyway. So we're talking about images. Any particular ones strike you throughout the film? I think this is really the only way we'll be able to talk about it.
Any images that particularly struck? I don't know about images that struck me. Just generally visually, it was very nice. A lot of absurd elements. David Lynch is a big fan of this film, apparently.
Yeah, you can tell.
I can see. I always find it really interesting when someone this is the only acid western I've seen, and I think it's interesting when people take a well-established genre and then play with the rules and the traditions and stuff and make it their own thing, and the idea of like the journey into the desert and whatever, but then putting the sort of surrealist or absurd twist in it and stuff. It's all really interesting.
When we were talking about Cheyenne Social Club, I mentioned that like I don't generally like normal westerns, but when there's a twist on it, I start liking it quite a lot. So like this is very much that, as well as like I don't know, horror western or like magic westerns or darker westerns, I suppose.
So you're a fan of Red Dead Redemption 2 Undead Nightmare?
That's from Red Dead Redemption 1, and no, because that's
zombies, sorry. I meant the second Red Dead game, not. You know what I meant.
Zombies do not get to count as an interesting twist.
For those that don't know, Red Dead Redemption was actually the second game in the series.
Yes, after Red Dead Revolver.
Exactly.
An overlooked classic, I'm sure, that has been unjustly forgotten.
Is it? I think it's just mediocre.
I think it's meant to be very terrible.
Yeah, there's a big reason.
I'm pretty happy to leave it behind.
Yeah.
Anyway, to talk about stuff that interested me, I really enjoyed the sequence with the third gunmaster, who lives with the rabbits in his rabbit farm. He and El Topo learn to understand each other through music.
Yeah.
And he, I think, of the ways El Topo cheats, I find it the most interesting. He promises that he will be able to, he says he only needs one shot, so he will always get it into El Topo's heart. And El Topo's trickery is to put a small bronze dish above his heart, his jacket, so that when he uses his one shot for that, he's unarmed and El Topo can kill him freely, which I liked. And as El Topo notes, it's a lesson on how perfection sometimes isn't enough. It has its drawbacks. But I
feel like I missed all the deep and metaphorical stuff.
Yeah,
in the first half, at least, I feel that this film is very much a film in two halves, without a doubt. And I think I was a lot more focused and into the second half.
The second half has a lot more Christian imagery than the first half as well, which I guess would be more familiar to you and I think.
Yeah.
Because, like I say, from what I read, the four Grandmasters each represent some Eastern philosophy, and whilst I can't relate it to that directly due to my lack of experience, what they have to say is interesting on its own terms.
Yeah. No, it is definitely. But I feel like I kind of missed it, and I got the film a lot more in the second half, because the first half, it's not that it's discreet at all, but you can kind of watch it as a western and just be like, this is a really weird western, you know what I mean? Whereas I feel like in the second half, it's a lot clearer that you need to look a lot deeper into the film and try and understand what's trying to be shown. And I feel like I got that more as the film went on.
Yeah, that's fair. I think certainly in the second half it becomes undeniable what it's trying to do.
Yeah, it's less like what the fuck's going on, and more like, okay, I know where we are. And then I was still able to think back to the first half, but it was more During the first half, I was kind of like, what the fuck is going on? They're just in a desert. Yeah.
I find I'm trying to think. Also, there's an actual line in this film, which is
that's cool. Yeah.
Apparently, if you're paying attention, you can see it get wrangled off by a stagehand. If you're not like looking at where the shot's focused.
Interesting.
Which, if I ever watch this again, I will keep an eye out for. I'm trying to think. As a persistent image in the film of dead bodies being covered by honeybees, which I don't think happens in real life, but I would give a 10 out of 10 up for being really cool.
I did not even notice that.
Disgusting,
that's
as
cool.
the image goes. When El Topo has his crisis after he's betrayed, he runs back to the dead bodies of the four masters.
Yeah.
And then the very first one is now covered in honey as the bees have made their home.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah.
And then at the end of the film, I forgot how El Topo died until I said this, which is why I didn't mention it in my plot summary. El Topo covers himself in lamp oil and sets himself on fire. Having his mission.
Which is what the Buddhist monk did in Vietnam or Cambodia.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a link there?
It might be an established Buddhist practice. Although it doesn't sound like a Buddhist practice.
Well, a lot of monks did it.
Yeah. Well, I guess it must be something that's recognised in the philosophy. Or I'm sure. I mean, that's stupid. Sorry. I should say it probably has a spiritual significance that is lost in the eye.
Apparently, Alejandro became a disciple of a Buddhist monk in Mexico City in the 1960s. So there's potentially. So apparently
the final shot of the film is El Topo's body having also become a honey factory.
Chinese philosophy, Zen Buddhism, astrology, Sufism, European surrealism, the Kabbalah, and the Tarot is apparently the main inspirations for him.
I think tarot apparently he spent a lot of life trying to studying tarot reading and trying to get it right. In terms of like bringing it back, which I find interesting.
Man, the more I think about this film, the more I think I really did enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it gives you a lot to ponder.
It was good. It was the thing was whilst it did feel very long, and there were a couple of bits I was a bit bored by. The imagery was good enough, and the meanings and dialogue were good enough to kind of keep you going. Whereas I feel like the problem. I almost wish that we'd watched Valerie and Her Week of Wonders back in whatever week that was that we missed out.
Oh yeah.
Because I really, really hate that film because it feels like it is just one of these films that's like super absurd and super surreal. But I think it would have been really interesting for both of us to compare that to this one, because for me personally, this one works as a film at face value, albeit a very weird one, as well as having the deeper meanings, which I always think a film needs. Personally, and maybe that's I'm a fucking philistine for that, but I think you should always remain accessible, and I don't think I'm not saying every film
his most accessible film of his. This is apparently Jodorowsky's most accessible film, and it was like designed with that in mind.
Yeah, so I really do believe that. I don't think every film needs to be mainstream. And I think some of the best films are surrealist films and absurd films, but I think you need to have some element that everyone can connect with, or else I don't think you can really be successful. Although there's always going to be an audience for whatever it is, but I think
I think obviously it just depends on what your motivation is, I suppose. If you're creating for creation's sake, then obviously I think you should be free to do whatever you want.
No, I mean I think I absolutely agree.
People, then
I agree that you're free to do whatever you want, but I'm just saying in terms of getting an audience, not even getting everyone to like it, but just having an audience, you need something. Because anyone can make a film for themselves, but I don't know. I don't like these people. I don't like films that are literally just for the person that's made it, because I feel like that kind of defeats the point for me of filmmaking. But
there's I don't know if it's like a common thing, but in a lot of Japanese stuff I've read, they talk about how if you make art that's too self-indulgent, then that's basically just asking the audience to watch you masturbate.
Yeah, there you go. That sums up my point exactly. I have to agree with that.
Yeah, I think I suspect that on a rewatch, this film would work really well once you could like get an eye for the whole of it, because it is very much a sort of circular loop, I suppose.
It's a spiral. A spiral.
Yeah, well, yeah, spiral is the image.
But
Topo's actual redemption comes in the form of the next generation, which is obviously a universal potential redeemer for us all.
Yeah,
perhaps a recursive one.
So talking about the next generation and stuff. There's supposed to be a sequel.
Yes. What happened is that Jodorowsky was going to make it a film, but I think he's given up and he made it a comic.
Yeah, there's a comic book. Oh, there's a comic book produced by David Lynch. Oh no, sorry. The film is supposed to be produced by David Lynch, but it might not happen. It probably won't. It almost the director's 91, so almost definitely won't happen. But it's a stalled film project, and David Lynch was down to produce it, so that's interesting. But yeah, you're right. It is a comic book. But apparently the guy is a comic artist as well, so it's not just randomly.
Yeah, he's done a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Apparently, what was I going to say? Apparently, he had a real renaissance in his career in the early tens. He made 2 semi-autobiographical films that were apparently quite good.
And that would be in his 80s, which is pretty impressive.
Yes. Well, my grandpa still works in his 80s. It's not impossible.
Does he? That's interesting.
Yeah. He works at the Harriet Watt.
Interesting.
I won't dox him. But
you've already said too much, Jamie.
I have.
If people just look up Jamie's granddad Harriet Watt, they're gonna find you.
Figure it out. Yeah. What else to say about El Topo, I suppose?
So who was your favourite character, and why was it Jontron?
Jontron? What are you talking about?
The guy, the sheriff looks exactly like Jontron. Do you notice that guy?
No.
Okay, I'll get it up and I'll put it in the Discord for you to feast your eyes on.
In terms of actual characters, I liked. I think I'm going to stick with the third Gunmaster. The Gunmasters are definitely the most memorable characters, I suppose, other than perhaps El Topo himself.
I like the blind one. Well, do you want to go through the 4 Gunmasters?
I was cowering away from that because I don't remember them all in order.
Neither do I. I was hoping you did.
Well, okay. Well, we'll work it out together, right? The first Gunmaster, I think, is the blind one. Am I right?
I don't think so.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Because El Topo tricks him by doing like a tiger trap underneath him. Remember? In the sand.
Sure.
Okay, well, you'll just have to take my word for it. And he has like 2 assistants, one of whom has no arms and one of whom has no legs. Then they sort of work together occasionally.
I remember those guys. Yeah.
I don't remember the lessons the blind man tells El Topo. I apologise. Then El Topo meets a delicate man who builds very pristine sculptures with his hands.
Oh yeah.
And is dedicated entirely to a particular woman. And El Topo tricks him by hiding shards of glass underneath the woman's feet so that when she hurts herself, he is distracted and he can shoot him. And the third Gunmaster we talked about, he's the Music Bunny Man, who's too perfect to live. And then the final... Yeah?
Oh, sorry. No, sorry. Go on.
And the final Gunmaster is... he's sort of a Greek style, I suppose, naked old man on a mountain who traded his gun away for a butterfly net. But El Topo cannot hit him with his gun. Well, he initially suggested they use fists, and El Topo can't punch him because he's too quick, and he uses his gun and he can't hit him with that either. The old man is able to ricochet them with the net, and he says he'll ricochet the next one into El Topo's heart. But then they have a conversation where the old man asks El Topo what he wants from him because he has nothing. And El Topo says, I want your life. You can still give me that. And the old man denies him this gift by killing himself.
That's right.
And this starts El Topo's spiral.
Can you Can you get Amazon on? Can you get it up now? Can you get the film up now?
Yeah, on Amazon I can.
And if you go to 1 hour, 26 minutes and 40 seconds, you'll see the guy looks exactly like Jontron.
Okay, why don't you talk for a bit while I'll do that?
How's everyone doing today? We good? I'm glad to hear it. I'm not very good at this whole talking malarkey, Jamie.
Wow.
I'm just looking on. I think the guy might have a couple of films on Mubi. I'm just having a look now. He does. It looks like it's his films. It looks like it's the two films you're talking about from the 2010s.
Ah, nice. What was the timestamp you gave me?
Oh, Jamie, El Topo's on. Oh no, it's not on Mubi. That would have been funny.
Ah, that would have been really embarrassing.
1 hour 26 and 40 seconds.
1 hour 26 and 40. Oh, I'm right there. Because of course you're on my account.
Yeah.
Okay, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It's pretty.
I see you.
I noticed it? I don't think I've watched Jontron ever, but for some reason I noticed immediately.
He turned out to be a racist. But
I noticed immediately though, for some reason.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of, because it's mildly relevant to what we do, I do not like Mubi's new layout. I preferred it when it was just a list, but now it's gotten all complicated.
I don't think I ever saw it when it was just a list. I'm quite close to cancelling Mubi. Do you have Mubi?
I have your Mubi.
Oh, you have my Mubi. Yeah, I'm going to cancel it because I think my next payment is in January.
Oh well, I'd like to mourn it, but I can't deny that. I can't deny that I don't use it as often as I should.
Yeah, I've barely watched it at all, which is really
I don't
why I'm.
I don't have much. Sorry, I've watched one film on it. Yeah, it was called. What was it? It was called. It was called.
Meek's
Cut Off, and I thought it was shit.
I've watched 1, 2, 4, 8. I've watched 15 films on Mubi since I got it. Which
that's much more impressive than me.
I mean, but that's from May to now. I've watched 15 films.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you want to know the 5-star the films that I gave 5 stars to on Mubi?
What are they?
The Dolce Vita.
Mm-hmm.
The Brand New Testament.
Mm-hmm.
Anti-Porno.
Yeah.
And Popeye the Sailor meets Sinbad the Sailor.
Nice.
And my 4-star films are Water Lilies and Techno Boss. There you go. That's my Mubi reviews for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I might watch. There's a few of these I probably should watch. I haven't watched any of the Fellini films on here, despite promising to on this very podcast. I see they have the original Suspiria.
I don't know. Have you still got the BFI player, by the way?
No, I cancelled it.
Guessing you cancelled it. Yeah, that's fair.
There's stuff I should watch. I mean, I guess if you get my subscription, when you cancel, even if I don't go around to it.
Yeah, if you get your if you get a subscription, I'll just steal that from you.
Yeah, that's the cycle us two surrender to, isn't it?
It kind of is, yeah. I might get the BFI player again because I'm looking at all the films I had in that just for over Christmas.
I mean, I suppose these things they're good to have for a while.
They are, but I've got so many. There's so many.
It's just that Netflix and stuff have more films than I'll ever watch on them, even if they're of lesser quality. And
yeah,
I don't know. I really support Mubi as a company and what it's trying to do. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Anyway, shall we finish up with El Topo?
Get back on it.
Shall we give it a rating?
You want to give it a rating already?
Yeah.
Actually, I think. Yeah, we can give it a rating, and then there's a couple things, but we can rate it.
Oh, if there are a couple things, you can say them. What's I think?
So, John Lennon was one of the main reasons this film is so big because he convinced the Beatles manager who also had a distribution company to distribute it in America. So that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but did you know how the story ends? Or
John Lennon gets shot?
No. So
please tell me.
The Beatles. the Beatles manager, Klein something, he wanted Jodorowsky to direct an adaptation of a French BDSM novel, and like he'd already promised investors that this was going to happen.
Right.
But Jodorowsky had just discovered feminism at the time, and he refused to do it because he thought it was sexist. So he fled the country so he wouldn't have to direct it. And as revenge, Klein made it so no one could ever watch El Topo or Holy Mountain ever again until 2007 when it was finally released on DVD.
Really?
She was hoping Jodorowsky would die and then the value of them would go much higher when no one had been able to see them. So yeah, he's basically, so he both sort of started and ruined Jodorowsky's career, which is obviously a massive shame for him.
Yeah, that is a bit of a shame.
There's also a story. Jodorowsky was chosen to adapt Dune before David Lynch was.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
It was quite interesting actually, because I think if Jodorowsky was the first choice and Lynch was the second, then I think that shows they had a very specific vision of what they wanted Dune to be. But his version of Dune ran out of budget. Sorry?
I've not seen Dune.
No, but I've seen bits of it. But Jodorowsky's version ran out of budget even before it started filming.
Right.
He wanted Salvador Dali to star in it, and he offered him a rate of $100,000 an hour.
Oh my god!
And he also got Orson Welles to be in it, on the condition that Orson Welles' favorite gourmet chef would provide the meals for the shoot.
Right.
And it turned out that he worked with Frank Herbert on it, and he gave him a script for it, and the film, had it ever been filmed, would have been 14 hours long.
Jesus Christ! So when you said 100,000 per hour, you mean per hour's work or per hour of the film? Per hour,
I don't know, hours work, hour of the film. It would have still been.
They would have been very different.
Yeah.
Prices.
And he would have had his son, who played the son in El Topo, play the main character.
Oh, is that his actual son?
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, so that film never happened because it ran out of money, but it became
I can imagine.
The subject of a documentary called Jodorowsky's Dune.
Interesting.
Apparently also quite good. Yeah.
Wow. And the other thing I want to say is the film, despite being a Mexican production, was not released in Mexico because apparently there was a very bad response to his first film.
There was a riot there, which not a lot of filmmakers can claim. So
this film was just in the US, in midnight theaters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have midnight theaters here? I feel I'm missing out.
It's true. So, Alejandro describes himself as an atheist mystic.
You know what? I read that and I was like, that's probably how I describe myself. So I'm happy with that.
Maybe that's why you connected so much to the film. Right,
yeah,
should we...
I mean, I don't believe in God, I believe in not believe, but I feel there's a spirituality to the world.
Interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
Shall we rate?
Yes. I will rate this an extremely strong watch it. I think it's the sort of film that everyone should probably experience at least once, as it percolates in my mind that may potentially be upgraded in the future, but for now it is a strong recommendation to watch it at least once.
I'm also going to say watch it. I was kind of hoping you would say Criterion Collection after your praise.
Very, very close to saying Criterion Collection.
Is there a Criterion Collection?
You know what? I'm going to say it now. Criterion
Oh my
Collection.
god.
I think this is the second film that deserves such a ranking. Although I don't know. I think I haven't discussed this with you yet, but I think at the end of the year we should do a top 5 each of the films so far, so we can discuss our trends there. But I definitely think it's among the better films we've seen.
There is a Criterion Collection. It comes with 4 of his other films and a poster for each film. Oh no, sorry. It comes with 3 of it. It's 4 films total. It comes with a poster for each film, and it's £60 from HMV. So you're going out and telling people.
Quite reasonable.
Going out and telling people to spend £60 on this film.
I would genuinely spend that. I think.
Good.
If I had the money.
I'm going to say watch it. Go on Amazon right now. How much did it cost you to rent, Jamie?
It's 99p. It's surprisingly cheap.
Right. Go and buy it on Amazon. watch it, rent it rather on Amazon.
Mm.
This is a good picture.
Yeah, good flick. Not one you'll forget in a hurry.
No.
Alright. So I know it's quite late for you and I, but this is a very important week for me, so I need to get in at least one thing about what I've been doing, which is that after a grand total of 113 hours, I have finally finished the main story of The Witcher 3, and thus I'm ready to prepare opinions for it. So, are you ready for them? My hot opinions?
Oh, unfortunately, we're actually out of time, so...
No, we're not. We're not. This is an unusually long episode, but I can quickly say... The writing's really good, but the game design's really conventional. But it doesn't matter because the writing's really good and has a sense of genuine charm.
You can take your time.
Okay. I like The Witcher. The characters are fun. It has a certain charm to it. It occasionally has a really nice otherworldly weirdness that isn't actually dissimilar to the film we've just watched, but only really in the second of the game's major areas, which is Velen. Which I think is the strongest part of the game by far. But even once we move past that, I think it has. It's just incredible how much good writing helps in a video game because it's so rare. But like when you notice that there is like just not noticeable, as soon as there is actual like things like chemistry or good dialogue or things that are genuinely funny, like it just makes such a difference to how much fun you have. I like The Witcher a lot because it's part of my favorite joke in the entire world, a version of it, which is a very serious, grim man who is forced to do incredibly unserious things, alongside Metal Gear Solid, which is another great game series. But yeah, I think compared to the books, I can say pretty confidently at this point that it's not as thematically deep, I don't think, and I don't think it has quite as much to say. But I think it's still... For an open world game of its size, it is remarkably well written. But yeah, I would also say from a game design perspective, it's nothing special, but it doesn't matter. I just think there's a lesson for us all there. And it's not like the Rockstar thing where like there's a really well written story, but it just sort of happens between chapters. Like it's very interwoven with the world around it, and it's very easy to explore. Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing the expansions. I started Hearts of Stone immediately, so I'm going to do that, and then I'll take a break before I do Blood and Wine.
So having played that, you're now, of course, going to get Cyberpunk 2077 right now and play it on your gaming rig.
I'm really curious about the long-term fate of Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah.
In the early stages of like the controversy, quote unquote, I was thinking like, okay, so it's buggy now, but like a year from now, no one's gonna remember that, and like it'll be considered a classic. But I'm wondering if like the negative publicity has actually just been so bad that like no matter what they do to it, its legacy will be forever tarnished.
It seems to have been really bad, like really bad. Yeah, I'm thinking of getting it when I get a new computer, if and whenever that is, because I don't think my current one. I got Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. I think that's the most sort of draining game I played on my PC, and I had to play that on like medium, and it's still not great. So yeah, I definitely think there's no point doing something like that. I found a really good YouTube channel, Jamie.
Yeah.
And I say I found, but the guy's gone from like 3,000 subscribers to almost 200,000 in like a week. So what I mean is YouTube found Joel Haver. Okay. Joel Haver. I've sent a bunch of them to the chat. I don't know if you watched them.
Definitely.
You didn't. That's fine.
No.
But now I'm officially recommending you the films on the podcast, Jamie. The guy makes a short film every week. Generally comedy films, but they're like they're comedy films that are very high quality. It's not like
yeah.
Well, I guess all the big ones are pretty high quality, but yeah, they're really good. So I would highly recommend it. It seems that he's blowing up, and it's very well deserved. I would say. So yeah, I'd recommend it.
Yeah.
I'll send you the link, and you will feed me back on your favorite ones.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I watched It's a Wonderful Life also earlier in the week.
Right. You watch that every year, don't you?
No. This is the first time I watched it.
Oh, really? Oh, what did you think? I wasn't a big fan of it.
I really liked it.
Well, well, there you fucking go. What are the chances of us not having exactly the same opinion?
Disgraceful. Yeah. Trying to think if there's anything else to mention in my life that's been super important. Probably not. So yeah, that's me done with my updates.
Cool.
Oh, next week's film will be The Railway Children. Hooray!
Nice. I showed a film that I produced. We did a little within the filmmaking society. We did a viewing. We're not allowed to publicly premiere it yet, but it went really well. People really liked it.
That's good.
That was good. And interestingly, me and my flatmates filmed. We had a birthday party, just within the flat for one of my flatmates, and we did a film where we filmed every 20 minutes of his birthday. We'd film what was going on, and then I edited it together in a hopefully entertaining way, and that got good response as well, which I was surprised by because
that's nice.
I think it's very, because we all found it hilarious, but then we were wondering, because it's full of us just like joking and being drunk and whatever. We were wondering if it would work, and it did work, so that's really good. Maybe I'll make it public and promote it on this very podcast. Who knows?
Very nice.
Anyway, so that was nice.
It's the simplest ideas that work the best, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a nice little concept that I had, and we made it well. I managed to edit it well, which I was happy with because I'm normally not the best editor. Well, I'm not bad at editing. Anyway, that was interesting. It was good because it feels like I'm getting better at making films, which is nice. I rewatched one of my old ones and it was pretty wank, but it's good that
I think every creative thinks that, don't they?
Yeah, it's true.
Sure, it's better than credit.
Well, I feel like this one, the one that I'm talking about, is quite annoying because it's actually, the story's really good, and people have said that the story's really good, but I wasn't very good at writing dialogue, so the dialogue's really bad, and then the film quality and sound quality is really bad as well because it was a few years ago and I wasn't really. So yeah, there's that. But anyway, that's just a little BT dubs there.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Right.
Cool.
In that case, let's sign off, I suppose.
Let's say bye.
The boys and girls a Merry Crimbo.
Merry Christmas, guys.
Yes. Our next episode will be after Christmas, I guess.
Probably, unless there's some
Friday
weird
year,
reason to not do that.
Most likely. Right.
Maybe we'll record on Christmas Day. Definitely not.
I should probably spend that time with my family.
Yeah, no, same. Upset. That was a joke. Okay.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.